There's the voice if you heard it on your laptop. So, friends, I think one of the things that's important to begin with is the very first Sunday that I was ever at the Cy-Fair United Methodist at the time. There was a lovely reception that was put on for myself and Sarah and Nora. And at that reception, I was asked at least three times, when are we going to align with Reconciling Ministries Network? So I think that's important to point out simply because this has been a question that has not only been asked of me that early, but it's been something that's come up very frequently. Part of the reason in which we're having this conversation right now is that at the beginning of Mosaic, we were all coming out of a time of disaffiliation in which a church vote very much shaped where we chose to worship. And there was a lot of baggage, there was a lot of healing, and I would even use the word trauma wrapped up in that. And so for us to go through something like a Reconciling Ministries network alignment, there's a vote that's involved with this. And I thought it was appropriate that we give ourselves some time to solidify who we are, but also heal some of those wounds that existed. I also thought it was pertinent, and speaking with Whitney, I believe that she agrees, in waiting beyond General Conference of 2024 to see what changed about the United Methodist Church, if anything, and some things did change. And I think now we are at a time where that healing, I know that there are still some open wounds for all of us, but that healing has at least begun. And also, we have a clearer direction about who we are as United Methodists going into 2026. Earlier today, I sent you an email, and in that email, one of the key pieces that I included was the foundational statement of Reconciling Ministries Network. Whenever we vote on January the 25th, what your ballot will look like is it will have a copy of this foundational statement, and it will simply ask you, yes, do you align with this statement? You will either say yes or no. And so I think it's really important that we talk about this statement. And as you break out into your small groups later, I will put this in the chat so that you can see it. But I'm just going to read it as you see it on your screen right now. It says, we celebrate God's gift of diversity and value the wholeness made possible in community equally shared and shepherded by all. We welcome and affirm people of every gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation, who are also of every age, race, ethnicity, physical and mental ability, level of education, and family structure, and of every economic, immigration, marital, and social status, and so much more. We acknowledge that we live in a world of profound social, economic, and political inequities. As followers of Jesus, we commit ourselves to the pursuit of justice and pledge to journey in solidarity with all who are marginalized and oppressed. So, as I've reflected on that statement for the last several months, I do think it's important to highlight that what we see in this foundational statement are at least two of the core values of who we are at Mosaic United Methodist Church. I believe when we see the welcome and affirmation of gender identities, expressions, and sexual orientation, as well as a wide array of different other statuses of age, race, ethnicity, physical and mental ability, and so much more, what we see there is inspiring inclusion. The ability not only to welcome people who come from all different types of backgrounds and experiences, but to create spaces where they can truly belong here at Mosaic United Methodist Church. I also believe that when we look at this statement, we see what we talk about in joyful service with our neighbors at the very end of this foundational statement, where it reads, we commit ourselves to the pursuit of justice and pledge to journey in solidarity with all who are marginalized and oppressed. This statement doesn't just say that we welcome folks into the church and that they have a space to belong here, but that we will continue to do the work of including always. And I think that looks like joyful service with and for our neighbors. So as I reflect upon this statement, I really do think that who we are at Mosaic United Methodist Church is very much wrapped up in this foundational statement. We don't have this exact wording on our website. It's not something that we read each and every Sunday, but it's already a key part of who we are at Mosaic United Methodist Church. You're going to have the opportunity later in your breakout groups to discuss this foundational statement, to talk about words and phrases that stick out to you. And so you'll have some time to do that here in a little bit. So, what do we commit ourselves to as a Reconciling Ministries Network church? The two bullet points that you'll see on the Reconciling Ministries Network website that were given to me by Laura Young, who is the head of Reconciling Ministries Network and the Texas Annual Conference. are the outreach, affirmation, and intersectional ministry with and for LGBTQ persons in their local setting, along with creating opportunities to build relationship, engage in dialogue, participate in continuing education, and advocate for official UMC statements related to LGBTQ plus safety and affirmation, as well as UMC policies that ensure ordination and marriage equality. And so, what does all of this mean? It means that we would be committing ourselves to opportunities and new ministries here at Mosaic United Methodist Church. A couple of examples of things that we could do is to create support groups for parents whose children have recently come out as LGBTQ plus individuals. Some things that we could do in the community are things like attend pride festivals and pride parades with our Mosaic United Methodist t-shirts on. Now, I want to be really clear about this. These are opportunities that we could invest in as the church, but it is not expected that all people will attend those events. It's not like we're going to force people into these ministries. However, by becoming a Reconciling Ministries Network church, it would give us the ability to do these things in a level that is connected to Reconciling Ministries Network. One of the other things, and Whitney's going to talk about this a little bit later, is the partnership with other Reconciling Ministry Network churches in our area. There are not very many, but it does put us into a network where we can bounce ideas off of one another and we can get together and come up with ideas together. One thing that I do want to highlight on the second bullet point, the very end, is it says, as well as UMC policies that ensure ordination and marriage equality. If you followed the 2024 General Conference, what you will remember from that is there was some language added into our discipline that does ensure that LGBTQ plus folks can be ordained and that LGBTQ plus folks can be married in the United Methodist Church. But there are other things that we can continue to advocate for in the inclusion of LGBTQ plus peoples. And so the Reconciling Ministries Network does a great job of making sure that we have the resources that we need to know what those opportunities are. So I'm going to pass the ball now to Whitney, and she's going to talk to us about what some of the benefits could be of joining the Reconciling Ministries Network.
So as Schuler has already said, it is part of who we are. We can see two of our values in that mission statement. We have already been practicing inclusion and joyfully serving with our neighbor since the inception, since we began. And so this is an opportunity for us to further live into who we are. It's our opportunity to make the level of inclusion wider, to open those doors more, so that those who maybe have felt unseen before, unwelcome, now have an opportunity to see a church be inclusive, be welcoming, and really live into who they say that they are. As he said, it's been a voiced concern since the very beginning of Mosaic. It is something that people have asked about. It is something members have looked into. They have wanted to hear more about ways that they can get involved or ways that Mosaic could be a reconciling ministry network church. And so this is just a continuation of something that began as a discussion in December of 2022. We have LGBTQ plus members, visitors, and family members within our congregation. It is already seen as a safe place, but we can make it safer. And when we're talking about safe, we're not just talking about physical safety. We're talking about their spiritual safety, their emotional safety, their mental safety. We are talking about their full being able to come into Mosaic and feeling safe, that they can come and worship, they can find an opportunity to be involved, to volunteer in a place where God created them to be, and they are safe in that. This is the next one, Schuler. So, as he was saying, there are very few churches aligned with Reconciling Ministry Networks. There are no churches outside the Sam Houston Tollway. If you happen to hear my sermon on directions, this map means nothing to Whitney, but the will you point the
Whitney,
cursor?
where my
Yeah,
mouse is.
that's where we're at.
Yeah, we're in the northwest part of that.
That's where we're at. So we really have the potential to meet a great need in our community and even beyond our community. Currently, there are actually three UMC churches now aligned with Reconciling Ministry Network. St. Mark's and Westbury UMC, they both are, but Love United Methodist Church, which is a church that also came to be out of disaffiliation. They joined and they are in the Beaumont area, correct, Schuler? They're in the Beaumont area. So even farther away from the area that Schuler circled on the map. And so this is just a great opportunity for people to come and find that place. People who know what Reconciling Ministries is, but they haven't been able to find a church near them that is associated with them, that is aligned with them. And so we have this wide area that we are able to reach people, to show them that we are a church that has done the work, that values them as they are, the way that God made them as a place that they can come and be who they are.
So one thing we want to do in the full sake of transparency and the full sake of conversations that you're going to have in your breakout groups is talk about what are the challenges that aligning with Reconciling Ministries Network could present to us. And so our focus groups we were meeting and talking about what those challenges could be landed on these two, and there may be more that you discuss in your groups later. But choosing to be clear about who we are also means accepting the tension that some may decide this community is not for them. There could be folks who go to our church website and see that we belong to the Reconciling Ministries Network and see that network really advocates for the affirmation of LGBTQ plus individuals into the life of the church. And by being clear about who we are, some folks may decide that their theology does not align with where we are as a church, and that could be a reason that they choose not to worship with us. I think also recognizing the challenge of naming our values publicly. Some people may choose not to engage with us because of our commitment to those values. I'll share a brief story about this that happened very early on in the first year of us becoming a church. But whenever we had to find a space for our one board to meet, when we were in a tiny little office space and we didn't have places to meet throughout the week, one of the first things I did was reach out to some churches that were local around us and to just simply ask, is there a spot that we could use on your campus once a month for about an hour and a half to 2 hours? And a couple of the responses that I received from those churches said no, and were very clear about why we could not meet there. That they had gone to our church website and recognized that the values that we uphold, specifically of inclusion, were not values that the church that we would be meeting at upheld, and so we were told no. And so I'm not saying that this is something that no church in our area would ever partner with us because of our alignment with Reconciling Ministries Network. But as we think about challenges, that may be one that exists, not only in partnering with churches, but in other nonprofits and in other organizations. Being clear about who we are as a Reconciling Ministries Network church, if we choose to align with Reconciling Ministries Network, that could be a challenge that's presented for us.
So, what does the process look like? The process of voting. This paragraph that you are seeing on your screen right now, this came directly from the liaison at Reconciling Ministry Network, and she was letting us know that there is an option. There's two options, and it can be that it is voted on by the church or it is voted on by our one board. And our in our church council that we had a couple months back, it was widely um, agreed that we wanted to have this as a church-wide vote. So, in order to have this church-wide vote, we have to have a 75% threshold for the vote to pass. That is 75% of those members who are in attendance on January 25th in worship when we hold the vote. Those that can vote are professing church members who have completed confirmation. Now, we are not going to go up and down the aisles and check everybody's name and ensure that you are a member. We are going to go by the honor system. And if there is someone that we do have a question about their membership, we've seen them maybe only a few times. That is something that Schuler and I will step in if needed, but it'll be the honor system. And so that vote will be again those who have completed confirmation and are professing members of the church. And again, the vote is the 25th in worship. You have to be present to vote. This was something that the task force put into place. Um, at the very beginning when we started talking about what a vote would look like, they wanted it to be in person only. And so that's something that we are going to hold to. The day of the vote, there will be a bar set in place. That's where we will say you need to move into the black chairs for us to be able to count your vote. You'll be handed a paper ballot. Schuler and I are unable to vote because we are pastors, and so Schuler and I will count those votes. This will happen in worship, and then we will have that total. We will announce it, and then immediately we will move into prayer. So we are not going to allow for any clapping or anything. We recognize that there will be one side, regardless of how this goes, that could have some hurt feelings. And so we will immediately move into a time of prayer. So that's what the process will look like on the day of voting.